like to think of myself as an artist rather than a photographer, because in my artwork, as you can see from the studio, we have collections of things, and sometimes we'll build sculptures and photograph them. So the original idea is that it's a sculptural piece, but then in the end it might live as a photograph. But ultimately I'm a photographer that works with other mediums. I didn't want to be pigeonholed to photograph one type of thing. I didn't see that as the way that my mind worked, the way that the world connected with humans and how we connect with each other in terms of experiences and, you know, emotions. I feel like it's much more open than that. And so I couldn't just simply pick a project and take pictures of that simple thing. It was just way too specific for me. So what I did was create like loose, sort of like umbrella topics that I would work within. And so on my first project, which is called Intertidal, I was really interested in this idea of masculine identity and how that was seen in this circle of friends and family that I had grown up with. And so what I did was I would take portraits, landscape photographs of the environments that we would interact within and lived in and played in and hunted in and ate in. And I would shoot still lifes of objects that we used: tools, basketballs, baseballs, axes, wood that was chopped up with the axes. So the pictures became not just a lumberjack, but a lumberjack and then an axe and then the woods. So you can kind of gather this larger context of who these men were, what this environment was, and you start to get a bigger, richer picture of what was going on. And so I was really focused on, again, this idea of masculine identity. How did I learn things from my dad? What did he teach me? Who is he as a man? What does that mean in the larger context of the New England male, the historical whalemen of New Bedford and the loggers of Vermont? You know, like, where does all of this stuff sort of fit together and to inevitably come to make me who I am? And then I had a daughter, and I was, you know, really not thinking much about her becoming part of this art practice because I was so focused on this idea of masculine identity in boys and men and all that stuff. I realized then that a switch had been flipped and I became the father. So then I was really interested in what that meant for me. This is a new role. Once I started to really think about then how that project of Intertidal and all those sort of masculine attributes that I was interested in terms of man's connection to the landscape and nature and man's connection to his children as a father, and then me as the child changed. And then I became the father and she became the child. And I wasn't expecting that. And actually it was a really beautiful you know, epiphany of sorts that I had on the road one day. And I just thought, wow, I didn't realize this, but now this project really makes sense. This project is about masculine identity and in terms of me being a father and what that means, and how do I train my child, and how do I connect myself to the landscape and all those things that I've been thinking about prior, but now how do I connect her to the landscape? And it was really like a really pretty fluid segue into this next project. My daughter, Clover, who's 7 now, and I are taking road trips to introduce her to the natural world, basically. It started out as just father and daughter just getting out of town for a little vacation time, and it turned into this deep artistic approach to exploring the natural world. I wanted her to get in touch with that, like physically, and so it started with this one road trip to Maine. We had no plans, just me, her, and the camera. That led to this project, which is now us consciously exploring. We just, you know, try to get in touch with the local environment, whatever that might be, the streams, the beaches, the forests. And when you put yourself in those places, you inevitably run into the creatures and plants and things like that that inhabit that space. We've been working on it consistently now for about 1.5 years. We're doing mostly shooting, but there is some collecting, which will then turn into sculptural pieces. This is the same person over and over and over, so it's a very different process. And so there's a lot of photographs that seem disconnected. You know, they're a little bit weird, where it's like a picture of her sleeping in a bed, and then the next picture is a picture of a beach. The first time that this came in to show its face in this project is when we were in our hotel rooms. And that day we had been out in the woods, and we actually were collecting salamanders that we found in this really amazing stream in Vermont, and it was a really fun time, and we were putting them in my hat, and I was watching her sleeping. I thought, well, you know, maybe I should just take some pictures of her sleeping. The next morning she woke up and we were talking, and she said, I was dreaming of salamanders last night. And I just thought, well, I was photographing you, dreaming about salamanders. There was this really amazing overlap And so now I actually photograph her every time we camp, mostly in hotels. You know, we get in there for the night and we set up, she falls asleep and I keep working. Kind of random, but like when you put the larger story together, I think it will start to create this rich world. Grew up in Stratford, Connecticut, moved to Tucson, Arizona in my early 20s to get away from my family in New England, just explore the country, and became a photographer out there. Took a photography class at a community college, and then I went on to become more serious about it and went on to the University of Arizona, which has a really great photo department. And I found something that like finally made sense for me in my life. It was a way to communicate that I hadn't really thought about. And I was photographing my life at the time, skateboarding. And so then fast forward, I got into graduate school at RISD, moved back home more or less to Rhode Island, started photographing this project with my family about masculinity. And actually someone pointed it out to me once in a critique in graduate school, like, hey, do you realize you're doing the exact same thing you were doing there, here? And I thought, no, I didn't realize that. That's amazing. Wow. And that was it. After that, my life had literally changed in 1 second. We have some lighting equipment, some strobe equipment that we bring with us. But my biggest tools are Ziploc bags for collecting things and the camera for shooting pictures and a tripod. It's pretty low tech. I don't do any compositing of any kind. We increase the contrast, dodge and burn selectively. But I don't drop in any skies or foregrounds or anything that weren't in the actual photograph. And then all of the images are digitally output. They're all digital C prints. They all live as glossy color photographs on true photo paper, not inkjet prints. And then, you know, we'll get to the part of the project, which is where Clover organizes the objects that we found in some fashion, and we photograph her sculptures. It's a true collaboration. She has an artistic say. I mean, it's really rewarding in some ways to work with your child in such an intimate way, and she gets excited about it. And that, for me, is where the magic happens, to see her really understand and believe in the process, this artistic process. It really brings everything in my life full circle, all the things that are important to me. You know, family, nature, and art. If I had to like pick a message that I wanted people to gather from my work, particularly this project with Clover, is that we need to really love and respect the earth, and I think it's really important. And so I think it's an obligation of parents to teach their children to do the same. You know, that's always been in my bones, and so now that I have kids, it's going to be in their bones, if I can say anything about that, and have them be acutely in touch with the natural world. And they are absolutely acutely in touch. I'm just proud to have instilled that in them. You know, and it's pretty simple to do, but you just gotta care about it enough to do it.